Hi, this is Kevin again. I promised to show my Pontic Army from Mithridates the Great. I think he is a fascinating person in history. I've read a couple of books about him, and I have to say Rome was right. He was one of their most deadliest enemies. He was the king of Pontus, which is the northeastern part of Turkey, and he was regarded by his people as their savior from the oppression of Rome, and by the Romans as their most formidable and hated enemy since Hannibal. But like Hannibal, Mithridates proved himself an unstoppable force, defeating Roman armies, manipulating neighboring governments, and even organizing a mass slaughter of Romans and Italians throughout Asia Minor to advance his cause in liberating the region from Roman control. Mithridates basically declared himself an enemy of Rome very early in his life, and he fought three wars against Rome, the so-called Mithridatic Wars between 89 and 63 BC. But he eluded capture, made himself immune to poison by ingesting small doses of poison, and repeatedly won battles against Rome until he was defeated by Pompey the Great. And with that, he had actually committed suicide. But he fought three wars, and Rome considered him their most formidable enemy. But I've put an army together that I thought represented very much what he had on the field. This is it. He had a classic to typical successor Macedonian armies. He had a pike block called the bronze shields. He had heavy spear, cavalry, cataphracts. He had Scythians. He had Greeks. He had light heavy troops, elephants. He used everything that he could find from Greece and Asia Minor all the way up into the Scythian territories, everything around the Black Sea. And so you can see by the different elements that I painted, they come from Zeiss miniatures. They're 15 millimeter. And a lot of these units you'll find in my successor armies, but here when you put them in this particular collection, they would have been no different. I used different nations here. I added an imitation legionnaire units, which he built, not as very effective as Rome, but he had them. And those figures are from Corpus Belli, these here. He had heavy cavalry and cataphracts and Thracians. He used Cappadocians and Galatians. Even one of the Galatian princesses was a mistress of his. Don't know why I threw that in, but it's kind of fascinating. He got around, not only militarily. But my painting style is very much the artist palette. The Greek nations were very, very colorful. They didn't shy away from color, bright pinks, reds, blues. You'll see that on most of their reliefs. But here you'll see I used the elephants that you saw in the successor armies. These are new. These are Pontic heavy spear. I wanted them to look different than anything else, and so they kind of give a bit of a flair to the army alongside of the legionnaires that he built. This is a heavy cavalry unit. But here they are. Here's the legionnaires. They're from Corpus Belli, and I painted up what would have been maybe equal to a legion, and alongside of the spears. It's a very colorful army, very versatile. It did not have the flexibility that the Romans had naturally, but you could use this army up against Parthians, of which they were constantly in contact, the Armenians, Tigranes the Great, for an example. And you can use this army to fight various other opponents out of the Middle East. So I think that Zeiston figures are some of the nicest. You can use a lot of their different ranges and pull them into a collection that fits well with this army. But if you are interested in the history, I think if you read the book The Poision King, which was at the beginning of my video, you'll have a really good understanding of what this man was about. He really was a savior. He felt that he was a descendant of Alexander and of Darius, so he embodied both of them. And of course, like many stories in history, he was born with a multiple stars in the sky, and so people thought that he was a reincarnation of Alexander, that he was a god, and he treated himself that way. And I think if you look at what he achieved against the power of the day, he was quite a formidable foe nonetheless. So here is some of my favorite units. Here are the Throphori, the light javelin, light spear units, and I think mixing those up next to the elephants, you can hold off an opponent to your front for quite some time. I think the combination between elephants and light infantry are very, very effective. But these figures painted up extremely well, and I really, really love them. The chariots are also from Zeiston. I tried to do a little bit of fancy work there with reins, as you could see. These are just generic Greek cavalry, and I always like looking at the pike block. That always is nice. These are some new ones as well. Thracian auxiliary that I put into the army, and then of course there's Mithridates himself on foot. And these are a couple of his commanders, but I think in all it's just a glorious army. And I look forward to seeing you with my 30 Years' War, both Swedish and Imperial.